morning, first graders. Happy Friday. We are on day 3 of our at-home learning, and it is time for math. Today we are going to be continuing learning about how to tell time. So we have our objective, we will tell time to the hour and half hour. And today we're going to learn how to tell time to that half hour. All right, here is our clock. Do you remember what kind of clock this is called? It's not a digital clock, it's an analog clock, right? So on an analog clock, you can draw an imaginary line straight down the middle, all the way from the 12 down to the 6. All right, there's my line. So what is it called when I have 2 equal parts? What would this part be called? It's a half, right? So this is half of a whole, and this side is another half of this whole clock. Now, what time do I have on my clock right now? Do you remember what we call it when it's on the 12? We have 2 o'clock. So right now it is 2 o'clock. Now watch as I move my big hand halfway around the circle down to the 6. And as that moves halfway, my little hand is going to move halfway between our 2 and our 3. Do you see how it moved halfway down and this one moved halfway through the 2 and the 3? When the big hand is down on that 6, we call that half past. The big hand has gone halfway around the circle, so it would be half past, in this case 2, half past 2. So that means that a half hour has passed since 2 o'clock. The way we would write this is 2, and we have our 2 dots here, just like on a digital clock, 30. And the 30 is half of the hour, because what's half of our 60 minutes? Half of 60 would be 30. So 2:30 is half past 2. All right, let's practice some other times. Here we have 10 o'clock, because the big hand is on the 12, so that's o'clock, and we have our little hand on the 10, so it is 10 o'clock. If I move the big hand down to the 6, we're going to move it halfway, and then the little hand would have moved halfway between the 10 and 11. Then what time do we have here? We have half past 10. So it would be half past 10. That means it's a half hour has passed since 10. Since 10 o'clock. How would we write that down? I left our 2 little dots here. It would be 10. And then what was half of the hour? Half of 60 would be 30. So it would be 10:30. Let's do another one. How about we move it to, let's go down to the 6. So we're going to put that big hand on the 12, which means o'clock. And this little one's going to be on the 6. So what time is it? It is 6 o'clock. Oh, I didn't write that down. Here, let me write it now. 6 o'clock. Now, if I move, if I move the big hand halfway around the clock, and then my little hand will go halfway between the 6 and the 7. What time is it now? It is half past 6. Good job. Half past 6, which is a half hour, has passed since 6 o'clock. Oh, I was writing it down there, wasn't I? 6 o'clock, right? And how would we write that here? We would write it the 6, and half of 60 is 30. So a half hour, or half past 6, is 6:30. Last one. What time is it right here? Tell me the time. Say it really loud. It is 4 o'clock. So here we have 4 o'clock. If I move that Big hand halfway across our clock, down to the 6. That 4 has moved halfway between the 4 and the 5, or the little hand has moved halfway between the 4 and the 5. Now it is 4:30. Good job. 4:30. A half hour has passed since 4 o'clock. So how would we write this time? We would write it 4 and then half of 60 minutes, because an hour is 60 full minutes. Half of an hour is 30 minutes. Awesome! I think you guys are ready for your workbook pages. All right, your first workbook page is going to be page 94. On page 94, you are just matching up the clock, and some are digital and some are analog, to the time. And the time is listed in different ways, like 6:30, 2:30, 6 o'clock, 7:30, 10:30, and 5 o'clock. So let's look at 6:30 and try to match that one up first. We know that this isn't 6:30 because that says 2:30. There's no 6 in that, so we can automatically know that it's not that one. This one would be 5, and since that 00 means it's on the 12, that would be 5 o'clock, so it's not that one. Here's one with a 6 in it, but is it 1/2? It's not half because it's just 00, so that would be o'clock. Let's look up at this one. 6:30. It looks like our big hand is halfway across to our 6. And that one's halfway in between the 6 and 7, so that's 6:30. Oh, and that's what we're looking for. So 6:30 would go to this clock right here. Do the rest of those on your own little munchies, and we'll move on to the next page, which is write the time shown on each clock face. So on this one, you can write the time in the way that we were writing it with those 2 little dots. So here we have the little hand pointing to the 9, so we know that we can write 9, and then this is going to be o'clock, right? And o'clock on a digital clock is written 00. So it is 9 o'clock here. This next one, at the butterfly park, we have it halfway between the 9 and the 10. So we know that that's probably going to be a half hour. And yep, sure enough, that big hand is halfway between the 12 and back over to the 12 to the 6. So that's going to be 9:30. And the way we would write that is 9:30. All right, you may finish the rest of those on your own, and we have one more page to go, which would be this page here. Write the time shown on each clock. This one you're going to be writing it out. So this already shows you that it's 3 o'clock. So you would write it out 3 o'clock. This one, it's analog, so you can write it out just like a digital clock would be. So this would be 1/2 what time? It's halfway between the 1 and the 2, so it would be 1/2, which is written 1:30. Or you may also write 1:30. All right, little munchies, I'll let you get to it. Take care, and I'll see you in our next video.